Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Rebecca Sekulich with me here today. Rebecca built a thriving real estate business by helping clients maximize the value of their homes on a micro budget. She has now remodeled nearly 80 homes, helping her clients earn significantly more from their sales. As a single mom and entrepreneur, she's grown her business through referrals and owns multiple properties herself. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you, Tim, so much for having me. Glad to be here.
You have some other exciting things going on we'll talk about later in this episode, but why don't you first give us just a quick snapshot of your traditional business right now, what you do, what your company does.
Absolutely. So I've been in California for almost 26 years now, and I started off in commercial construction and operations, and I transitioned. I was designing the offices is what I was doing. I built 19 offices in Southern California, and eventually was convinced to get my real estate license. And I built this thriving, wonderful business based on regular residential real estate, little commercial thrown in there. But what I love to do is help my clients take their homes when they're getting them ready to sell and plus them in a way that I can on a micro budget and sell them for usually hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking, or help my clients buy a property that's not in the best shape, not a tear down, but more like grandma's house, and then help them design and remodel that after they purchase it before they move in. And I have resources to help them do that for pennies on the dollar. And I have a whole team of people. I have about 13 people attached to me on the construction building side. And I have about 100 vendors that I work with, throughout California, Arizona, Utah, all over, where I pull products and I get big discounts and I'm able to pass it on to my clients.
Okay, excellent. That sounds awesome. You mentioned doing it sort of at hundreds of thousands over asking. So it sounds like maybe you're doing the renovations after the listing is already made, or
no. So let me just give you an example. What's your in Phoenix right now? What's your average price point? What's your average sale?
The average home in the Phoenix Valley is about $500,000.
Okay, that's a good, easy number to do math. So let's say we go on a listing appointment, and I am the third or fourth agent to come in to talk to the clients, and so I meet with them and I ask if they've met with anybody else, and they said yes, and I do my whole presentation and we get done and I tell them what my numbers. I say, well, right now, I think your home in its current shape is worth about $500,000. And they look at each other and they say, well, so did the other three people that came before you. So we're all saying the same thing. So that's good validation. But then I can turn the conversation around very easily. I said, has anybody else said anything to you about what we could do to make this better, to net you more money? And they say, no, not really. So I explained to them, which a lot of people don't know, believe it or not. They don't know that what's on Zillow and Redfin and everywhere else is just taking your bedrooms, baths, square footage, and your lot size and putting them into an algorithm and spitting out what they think your house is like. But they don't really have access to if you've done any work to your home, if it got better or worse. Yeah. Since the last time. So I do research before I get there, and I'm not trying to steer the conversation any which way, but I will ask them, so based on this, now that I've seen your home, you actually probably, if you want the truth, won't really yield $500,000. We might get $450,000, and here's why. And I show them the houses that look like theirs. And if I come with 6 or 7 comps, I can say that to them. And then I go in and I say, they ask me, well, what could we do? It's a natural conversation. And I'm right there to say, and I walk around the house, I point to the things. I said, well, for a little bit of money, we could do X, Y, and Z. And for that, here are the homes in your exact neighborhood. I happen to have 3 comps, same bedrooms, bath, square footage at the high end, completely redone. And they sold for between $650,000 and $700,000. So where I am in Los Angeles, the price point is higher, so we can net more money. But I have done a lot of condo remodels, and we're netting, $100,000 to $300,000 over asking in the condo market.
Well, that's a lot of money. That's great.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So They always ask me, well, how can that happen? And how can we do that? We don't have any money. So like, that's a really cool part of it is that my company and myself have been loaning people money. I've been doing it for almost 15 years, for anywhere from a few $1,000s, or if they just don't have the money to bridge the gap for something like staging or actually helping them get an Airbnb so that they can move out so we can do some of the renovations and get it listed. And when I present them with a solution to a problem that they never even thought they had and basically offer them the money for almost free. And I'll say, but because everyone will ask me or send me a message, we charge a microscopic amount of money to borrow the money. We will loan up to $75,000 for a project. And that can pay for, I just did an entire kitchen, new cabinets, new countertops, new fixtures, new floors, new lighting, new paint, all of that for, including staging for, $45,000. And when they hear that, they said, hey, we had somebody come over and tell us it would just cost $50,000 to do our kitchen. So my value proposition is, yes, that's what a contractor is going to charge you if you call them off of Yelp or Craigslist or Facebook or the internet. But I have my own team of people and I keep them in business because they go from project to project to project. So they will do these projects, they will bid out the labor, and then I source the materials. And that's my gift from you, is that I play the role of project manager to get your house toothbrush ready so that it sells quickly and it doesn't sit on the market for 90 days before it sells. Most of my houses, every listing I've had this year, sold within 1 to 7 days of me listing it in 2024.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really impressive. How long does it take to do the renovations typically on an average? I guess I would call it a flip, but what?
But I don't own the house. Yes.
I know. So it's not a flip, but it's a reno.
Yeah, it's a reno. So most of my projects, if it's under $50,000, including the staging, I can do all of the interior work in usually 3 weeks.
Okay. And when you're renovating an entire kitchen and so forth, that may or may not work with their schedule, right? You can maybe find ways to work around it or something if they're selling it and they don't have anywhere else to go yet.
Yes. And so part of that loaning the money, my company will loan you the money and you can use it for anything. You can use it for anything, including going to, rent a place. So many of my clients in California, we do things a little bit differently here. Most of the houses that I'm selling, the people are not living in them. They've already moved because they were so concerned about getting their property at the next leg that we don't do really contingent offers once in a great while. I've only done one contingent offer in 26 months. So it's backwards here. Most of my personal clients are buying their home first and then they're selling their house. So I'm lucky that I get an empty house. If perchance the house isn't empty, I always say to them, this is what needs to happen. If it's just one person, super easy. If it's a couple, It's super easy. If it's a couple with kids and a dog, I always say, okay, let's take part of this money and go rent you a, little condo or an apartment or something for, 30 days or 45 days. And as soon as we get under contract and I can remove the staging furniture and we're clear to close, you can come back until we close, or we can negotiate, you coming back sooner than later. So most of my clients do not have to get displaced. And this year alone, only one of my clients, they did the Airbnb thing and they spent $5,000. They took a 2-month rental and it was exactly 2 months from the day I took the listing, the whole renovation, going into escrow and closing, and they had their money and they never moved back in and they took that money and bought a new house out of state.
Excellent. I'm sure you have a lot of great testimonials and success stories. How about every project has its challenges? I'm sure you have some good stories on that side too. Can you talk about one of the bigger challenges you've had to overcome?
Yeah, the hardest part here is permitting. We try to be with an integrity and do things above bar. I never want to do a project, especially it's a project that I do not own. It's one of my own flips. I don't want to do something for somebody else if it's not, right and perfect, because it will come back to bite us in the end. So a lot of the times, I take over the possession with the owner and I go in as owner builder and I'm at every inspection. And usually like on a big remodel, like if it's taking 6 to 10 months, my last one, 10-month remodel, I had 37 in-person inspections. And so with that comes challenges and sometimes the timeline gets pushed out. And I always tell people, whatever the budget is, just put your hand on your heart and say, let's just leave 10% of whatever the budget is for incidentals in case something happens. And if you're doing a $50,000 project, $10,000, it's at 10% is only $5,000. So I always tell people, this is what I know. If we get into a project and something goes wrong, like for example, we remodeled an entire $1.6 million condo on the beach in Santa Monica. Was perfect. We did everything over. We're in escrow, have a termite inspection, and there's dry rot in the baseboards that nobody saw unless you poked with, a termite thing. And so if we would have known about that, we would have fixed it. So things like that come up, but that, like a domino effect caused a bunch of problems where we had to open up a wall. We had to get a mold test. We had to make sure nothing was wrong, make sure there were no leaks. So that was an extra expense. Luckily, it was only like $1,000 extra, but we still had to open the wall and we had to pay to have it closed up, drywall.
Yep.
Yeah, remediated. So I just tell people, just be aware that we only know what we can see, and sometimes what we can see isn't what we think it is, or something else happens. And so if I say that up front, be prepared for the worst, and we're all taking a risk. And if something happens, then they're not surprised, and they go, "Oh man, I don't want to spend the money." The good news is that usually it's nothing that we can't handle. I've never had a project that's been so bad where we've had to stop, for a year or something and put everything on hold and it all fell apart. In my world, everything in life is fixable. Everything, taxes, houses, everything except for death. So as long as we're alive and we're happy, everything can be, resolved.
Right. Yeah. That's a great attitude. Yep. So, in the course of this journey, you've also been finding other uses and sources for some of these properties and finding better exit strategies to work for your clients. Can you speak to some of that and your other sort of business adventure that's spun off?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, actually the very beginning, at the end of last year, so like a year ago right now, one of my really good friends came to me and, it was time for them to leave their home. And, was interested and didn't really want to sell. We had that conversation. And so we had talked about renting it out. And I looked at what the property looked like. And I said, this would be such a better rental if we could make it look magical. You're in a really great part of the city. Who is the clientele? Who is the person that's going to come and rent this? And I'm sure there's areas of Phoenix that have this niche where, maybe the families go to, or people go to around one of your stadiums or something. There's a certain clientele that comes in and they expect it to be perfect, right? So it didn't take much convincing, but I was able to say, please trust me. You've known me for 20 years. Let me remodel your home. And they didn't want to do it because it was going to be expensive. And I said, well, what if I could do it for this much money? And I will call this in as a favor with my team because it's you. And we'll do it for like a micro amount of money. And I got the green light and they weren't involved whatsoever, which was difficult. And I went in there and I remodeled the whole thing. And we rented it out in one day on a month-to-month basis. We have laws and regulations in Los Angeles, so we have to play by the rules and do everything in integrity and above bar. But we got somebody in there who was working in the film industry and were coming in, and they were only going to be there a couple months, and they ended up staying almost 6 months. And the amount of money that they were receiving on that property was probably about $2,500, $3,000 more than they would have if it wasn't remodeled. So I was able to help recoup that expense back. It's already
right away.
Right away. And so the light bulb sort of went off in my head. Another client came to me the same thing. We're interested in selling. 2024 has been a weird year in real estate. Wouldn't you agree? Like a lot of weird things have happened. A lot of agents are struggling. It's not, the pandemic was like magical moments, not for the rest of the world, but in real estate, interest rates were low. People were buying and selling, buying up properties. And then it came to a halt in 2023 and it just rolled to 24. So a lot of people are nervous and they're like, well, is it the right time to sell? And so, of course, everybody wants a sale, but that's not our job as agents. Our job is to do what's best for the client. So I always analyze, Here's what we could get right now in its current condition. Here's what we could get if we did something to it. Here's what we could get if we rented it long-term. And here's what we could get if we rented it like midterm. Again, not a lot of short-term rentals in Los Angeles because of our
For
regulation.
seller financing is popular right now as well.
Yes, and seller financing. And so we talk about it, and a lot of them don't want to sell. They're like, oh, I've lived here forever, and I love this place, and I'd always like a place to come back to. So the beginning conversation with my friend led down a road down to 3 or 4 more properties where the same conversation was had. And so the light bulb went off, and I was like, you know what? I think there's something around this, and there could be a business, because all I had to do with other people's property besides the remodel is go in and do like a little refresh. And a refresh doesn't charge a lot of money. And I've just been able to move some things around, buy a couple pieces of furniture, take beautiful real estate photography, and do a really nice video and do a little bit of, Facebook ads or Instagram, YouTube ads. And I've been able to rent those properties like so easily and for so much more money. So my clients are so grateful. I'm like, okay, so now we're doing this. I'm playing the role of property manager agent. I'm not trying to sell anything. So we started a business, and my friend who I did their condo, we started a business called Home State Homes, because my home state is Michigan, their home state is New York. And it's just like, we feel like we want people to come to our properties and feel like they're at home. And the question everybody asks is, why would somebody want a short-term, midterm rental? Why wouldn't they just go to a hotel? And the answer is super easy. They get so much more bang for their buck. You can have a whole bunch of people stay there for pennies on the dollar. And if you did do, if you had a family come, you had to get 2 or 3 hotel rooms, you're going to be charged 3 times what you'd normally be. So 3 hotel rooms, like for an example, in Los Angeles, it would be about $1,200. And we could put that same family of 5 or 6 in an Airbnb or one of our properties for, let's say, $500 or $700 a night, with a pool, with a hot tub, with a pool table, with ping pong table, and a whole bunch of amenities and a kitchen so they can cook and do stuff and have a microwave and have a deck they can sit out of, have their own private space. And people just love that. And it's spun off. And now we are we're going into like 3 different markets. We have Los Angeles, California, and we have Colorado. We're going into Michigan. By December. My family is from there. So going into Michigan, we're going to go to New York and probably Florida, because we have, between the 2 of us, we own properties in most of those states.
Okay, excellent.
So super excited about that.
Okay, a lot of both businesses comes down to the final product and having a good eye for that, which apparently you do, and not only for the real estate space, but in general. Can you talk about your background and where that came from?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I kind of grew up that way. My mom was a teacher and an educational pastor, and my dad was an automotive illustration engineer at Ford Motor Company in Detroit. And I feel I got most of his genes because I'm very tactile. I can fix things. I knew how to change the oil when I was like 3 years old. And I built the Eiffel Tower out of toothpicks when I was in elementary school. So I feel like it just was born with that like wonderful tactile way of seeing something somebody else could see. I also went to Michigan State and I studied cartography and geography, so map design. And I have that spatial relation stuff. And so I also went to art school at Center for Creative Studies in Detroit for many years.
Yep.
Yep. And and then I was in commercial construction and I was helping build. I've built 19 offices, and, buildings, they're the same. It's like cookie cutter. It's like the same ugly carpeting and the same cubicles. And I kind of plus that with these franchises. I was building real estate offices. I was able to take something that was old and ugly and boring and add some style to it and shop for those materials or have things redone or repainted or pick some colors where when people would walk into the door, they would want to be there, kind of like a WeWork. You walk in and like there's kombucha on tap and there's all these snacks and everything. That I was creating welcoming, warming spaces, and I thought if I could do it in commercial, I was able to do that with somebody's home. So I think about that every time. What does the consumer want? Whether they're buying, like the person buying, like who are they? Who's going to buy this house? Who's going to rent this apartment? And what do they want? So it's a lot of connections and conversations I've had over the years, sort of learning how to plus things. And I feel like my forte is plussing things on a micro budget. and not having people spend a lot of money. And there's just thoughts and tips and tricks that I've learned over my 20 years in real estate where I'm able to do that. Everyone's like, how do you do that? And it's like, I mean, I do weird things. I've gone to stores and said, here is who I am. This is what I've done. I work with clients. Is there any way that we can have a partnership? I did what do they call the influencer collaborations? I did that 15 years ago. I had major stores give me, pro discounts and not be a contractor. It just a real estate agent by having a relationship. I'd walk in the door to the local, I'll just say the word, but Home Depot, whatever the hardware store was, and they would know me. And they would know that if I got keys done, they'd only charge me $1. They charged everybody else, $2.50 because I was there. And I if I sold a house in that area, I said to my clients, don't go to Home Depot. Not that I don't love Home Depot. Go to the local hardware store and support the local person who is, has this awesome shop. Why go to Home Depot and wait 20 minutes in line when you can go down the street to blank hardware store? And that's how I grew up, going to the local place and supporting the local people. So those collaborations have been quintessential in my success in having those, I call them secret squirrel places to go to find things for people. It's like antiquing all over again, except I'm doing it for new and sourcing materials. And I also am not that person. Everything I have in my house is, I don't try to buy from Amazon. It's just this is a vintage chandelier from mid-century modern from the 50s. It came out of a house. My clients wanted to throw it away. I said, you can't throw it away. Do you want me to help you sell it? And they're like, no, just get rid of it. I'm like, can I take it home? Absolutely. We'd be overjoyed. Took a picture of me with the chandelier from 1950 that they bought at a store in Los Angeles. And they cried. They're like, we're so happy it's going to good use. It looks so good. So instead of destroying things, I like to take things and make them better without ruining the integrity. So I love home restoration rather than just plowing things down and spending more money and not being able to recycle materials.
Yeah, excellent. Sounds like the skills you've acquired through all your different experiences have come together very nicely and make you very well suited for your current, both of your current endeavors. What in the next 6 to 12 months, what are you most excited about moving forward?
I think I'm most excited about my new endeavor. I mean, my real estate career is on autopilot. I love to sell houses. Most of my business comes from referrals, people like you and other states and past clients and everybody else. I don't really have to do much, but I'm excited about Homestate Homes because the call I had yesterday was with actually my cousin in Michigan, and she runs a cleaning company. And when I told her the level of excitement, because I'm not only going to be able to help her clients who she's already cleaning all their Airbnbs, I'm going to be able to make some of them double the money, which gives her business. And then what happens is everybody starts talking and they're going to say, oh, Rebecca has this property and this property. And then they're going to call me. And then I'm going to be able to give my cousin and her company and her dad who's a contractor, I'm going to be able to give them more work. And it is such a win-win. It's a win-win for my family. It's a win-win for the clients. And it's a win-win for us. And I'm happy to be back in my home state. And I'm excited to go into Colorado. I'm excited to go into different markets. And I have those teams on the ground of people that I'm helping, change their lives by giving them opportunities they might not have had. So I'm just stoked about it.
It's a lot of great ways that you're adding value and helping people and making an impact. So that's all great stuff. Thank you for sharing all that. If people would like to learn more about you or connect, what should they do?
The best way to find me, you can just Google my name, but the best way, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is not my name. Unfortunately, I got hacked a couple of years ago and some people impersonated me. So my Instagram is House of, like Gucci, but House of my last name. So it's House of Sekulich, Sekulich. I also have a YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rebecca Sekulich. I do have TikTok, the same Rebecca Sekulich, and we can put in the show notes, how to find me via my phone number. But people send me DMs and texts. I'm open to that. People call all the time. But I'm here to answer questions. I love helping people, and I feel like I have a professional PhD in resources and problem solving.
Excellent. It's all great stuff. Thanks again for sharing. I'd like to say thank you, everyone, for watching and for listening. Thank you again, Rebecca Sekulich, for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing all that, your stories and your insights into success in real estate and impact and helping your clients.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.